The market was noisy that evening, filled with shouts, smells, and the endless push of people. Humans were rare in this alien city, and Daniel, a traveler from Earth, stood out. He walked slowly between stalls of glowing fruits, strange fabrics, and metal tools. His stomach growled, but his pocket held only a few credits, enough for a small piece of bread or maybe nothing at all. He stopped near a spice stall, thinking of food, when he heard it, soft at first, then sharper, a weak cough. It came from behind a wooden stall stacked with dried herbs. Daniel turned his head. At first he saw nothing, only shadows and trash. Then a small figure shifted, a girl, thin, with grayish skin and trembling hands, sat hidden against the wall. She covered her mouth with her sleeve, her eyes wide and tired. Daniel frowned. He had seen beggars before in many worlds, but this was different. Her cough was heavy, painful. Her body shook with every breath. She looked like she had not eaten in days. Please. Her voice was a whisper, barely strong enough to reach him. Water. Daniel's throat tightened. He had no extra food, barely any money. But he stepped closer. The stall owner hissed, "Don't touch her, human. She is sick, cursed." "Leave her to die." Others nearby nodded and pulled their children away. Fear filled their eyes. No one wanted to go near her, but Daniel knelt down, ignoring the stares. The girl's skin was hot, feverish. Her lips were dry. Her eyes pleaded without words. "What happened to you?" Daniel asked softly. She coughed again instead of answering. The sound was sharp, painful. Each cough made her small body fold in pain. Daniel stood, heart racing. He looked at the stalls around him. A food vendor waved roasted meat under his nose. Another called out, offering bread. But Daniel's eyes went to a small wooden sign further down. Apothecary. Medicine sold here. He touched the few credits in his pocket. If he bought food, he could eat tonight. If he bought medicine, he would go hungry. The choice seemed simple for anyone else, but Daniel felt his chest tighten. This girl would not live the night without help. He turned and walked toward the apothecary, ignoring his stomach's cries inside the shop. The air smelled of herbs and bitter powders. The alien behind the counter raised an eyebrow. "Human, what do you need?" Daniel placed his credits on the counter. "Something for fever and cough." "The strongest you have." The apothecary looked at the small pile of coins and snorted. "This will not buy much, maybe enough for one dose. Are you sure?" "You look hungry, human. Food will last longer than this medicine." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Just give me the medicine." The alien shrugged and handed over a small vial with a thick, green liquid. Daniel grabbed it and rushed out. When he returned to the stall, the girl was still there, leaning weakly against the wall, her eyes half closed, her breath shallow. Daniel knelt and lifted her head gently. "Drink this," he whispered, pouring the bitter liquid into her mouth. She coughed hard but swallowed. Her chest shook, but after a moment her breathing eased a little. She blinked up at him, her lips moving. Why help me?" Daniel smiled faintly, though his stomach burned with hunger. "Because no one else will." Around them, whispers spread. Other aliens stared, shocked. Some shook their heads in disgust, others in fear. No one understood why a human would waste money on a dying girl. The stall owner leaned closer to another man and muttered, "That human is foolish. If the sickness spreads to him, he will curse us all." Daniel ignored them. He stayed beside the girl as the night lights of the market flickered on. Her cough softened, her eyelids heavy. She leaned against his arm, her body still weak but no longer shaking so violently. Daniel looked at the dark sky above the glowing towers and felt a strange weight. He had no food, no plan, no place to sleep, but he had made his choice. He whispered to himself, "One life is worth more than one meal." The girl's faint voice answered, almost like a dream. "Human, thank you." Her hand, fragile and cold, slipped into his. And for the first time that night, Daniel forgot his hunger, but deep inside, he felt the air of danger grow heavier, because in a market full of fear and whispers, one small act of kindness never stayed hidden for long. The next morning, the market was already alive with noise. Merchants shouted about their goods, children ran between stalls, and guards kept watch with their sharp eyes. But one corner of the market carried a different kind of attention. Daniel sat on a wooden crate, the alien girl resting beside him. Her cough had eased a little, though her face was still pale. She pulled her thin cloak around herself, hiding from the crowd, but the people noticed anyway. Whispers followed them like shadows. "Look, that's the human. He gave his money for medicine," one woman muttered. Pulling her son away, he touched her, he sat with her. "Doesn't he know she's cursed?" another said, shaking his head. Daniel could hear every word, but he didn't move. He gave the girl a piece of his water flask. She drank slowly, her hands trembling. "You should leave me," she said softly. "They hate me, they fear me. If you stay, they will hate you too." Daniel looked down at her. His face was calm, but his eyes were firm. "I won't leave." The girl's lips trembled as if she wanted to smile. But then another cough shook her small body. Daniel held her shoulder until it passed. Nearby, two merchants argued loudly, but their eyes kept darting toward Daniel and the girl. Finally, one of them called out, "Hey, human, do you know what you've done? That girl brings sickness, misfortune, anyone near her suffers." Daniel stood slowly. His stomach was empty, his body tired, but his voice carried strength. "She is sick, yes, but sickness is not evil. It can be healed." The merchant spat on the ground. "Not her. She should have been thrown outside the walls long ago." The girl lowered her head, shame burning in her eyes. Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to argue more. But before he could speak, 3 guards approached. Their armor was dark red, marked with the city's crest. The crowd grew silent as the guards stopped in front of Daniel. "Human," the lead guard said coldly, "you're not allowed to interfere with this matter. This girl is marked as untouchable. Take your hands off her and step away." Daniel's jaw tightened. His heart pounded. He looked down at the girl, who trembled at the sight of the guards. Her breath quickened, fear clear in her eyes. "No," Daniel said simply, his voice steady. "I won't leave her." The guards stared at him. Surprised by his refusal, one stepped closer, hand on his weapon. "Do you wish to break our law, outsider? Do you wish to be punished with her?" The crowd leaned in, hungry for drama. Some expected the human to beg. Others expected him to run, but Daniel didn't move. "I bought medicine with my own credits," Daniel said firmly. "I gave it to her. She is getting better. That is no crime." The lead guard's eyes narrowed. He glanced at the girl, then back at Daniel. "You don't understand, human. Her presence is dangerous. If you stay with her, danger will come for you too." Daniel met his gaze unflinching, then let it come. The silence that followed was heavy. The guards stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. Their leader waved his hand. "Keep your pity, but don't expect mercy later. Remember our warning." With that, they left, their armor clanging as they walked. The crowd buzzed with whispers again. Some mocked Daniel, calling him foolish. Others whispered in fear, wondering if the human knew something they did not. The girl whispered, her voice trembling, "Why? Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Daniel looked at her, his face softening. "I don't need to know everything. I only know you're suffering. That is enough." For the first time, tears filled her eyes. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. But Daniel pretended not to notice. He only handed her his last piece of bread, a crumb from the night before. She refused at first, but his steady gaze made her take it. She ate slowly, almost as if she was afraid the food would vanish that night. Daniel found a corner near the stalls where they could rest. The girl curled up under her cloak, her body still weak. Daniel stayed awake, watching the stars between the tall towers. His stomach twisted with hunger, but his mind was heavier with questions. Why did the guards fear her so much? Why did the people call her cursed? The market seemed normal, but under its bright lights and loud voices, something darker hid, something connected to the weak cough of one alien girl. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, his hand resting near hers. He had chosen her over food, over safety, and now he could feel the weight of that choice pressing down on him. Somewhere in the market, someone whispered his name, not with kindness, but with warning, because kindness in this city was more dangerous than hunger. The market looked the same the next day, but Daniel felt every stare heavier than before. Merchants raised their voices as usual, children laughed while chasing each other, and guards paced the alleys with iron steps. Yet wherever Daniel went, whispers followed him. That human sat with her all night, one alien muttered behind a fruit stall. He gave her medicine with his own money. He will catch the curse too, another said. Shaking his head, some pointed at him openly, their faces filled with both fear and pity. Daniel pretended not to hear, but his chest tightened each time. The girl sitting close beside him kept her cloak over her head. Her cough was softer now, not so sharp as before. Still, her body was weak, and she leaned against the wooden post for support. Her eyes looked brighter, though, clear for the first time in days. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the market's noise. "Regret what?" Daniel asked, though he already guessed. "Helping me," she whispered. Everyone hates you now. You can't even buy food. They won't sell to you because of me. Daniel gave a small smile. I don't regret it, not even a little. The girl turned her face away. Hiding tears, she didn't want him to see her cry. But others were not so gentle. A butcher slammed his knife into his chopping board and barked, Human! Stay away from my stall. I won't sell meat to a man who sits with the cursed. A baker, arranging loaves, sneered, Go back to your world. You don't belong here. Especially not with her. The words cut deep. But Daniel didn't show it. He only guided the girl away. The little vial of medicine was almost empty. He had saved some for the next dose, but after that, there would be nothing left. That night, Daniel found shelter under the broken roof of an abandoned stall. The city lights above flickered, painting strange shadows across the cracked floor. The girl shivered beside him, and Daniel pulled his thin jacket over her. Ignoring his own cold, "Why do they call you cursed?" he asked at last. His voice was calm, but his eyes searched hers. The girl hugged her knees to her chest, silence stretching between them. Finally, she whispered, "Because they say I carry death, they say my blood spreads sickness. They call me plague child." Daniel's brows drew together. "Is it true?" Her voice shook. "I don't know. I only know that everyone I stayed with. They got sick, some died. I ran from home, from family, from every place, but no one lets me stay. I cough and they fear me. They chase me away. They throw stones." Her body shook harder. But not from fever this time, from memory. Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "But you're still alive. You're still fighting. That means something." The girl looked at him, her eyes wide. "You're not afraid?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I've seen real curses, real monsters. You're neither." For the first time, her lips curved into the faintest smile, fragile but real. The peace didn't last. Suddenly, a group of drunk men staggered into the alley, their voices loud. They stopped when they saw Daniel and the girl. Their eyes narrowed, cruel smiles spreading. "Well, look here," one of them jeered. "The human and his little plague pet." Another laughed. "Careful, brother, touch her and your skin will rot off." "Maybe he already has." They stepped closer. Circling like hungry dogs, the girl shrank back against the wall. Trembling, Daniel rose to his feet, fists clenched. "Leave us alone," he said firmly. The leader spat on the ground. "Or what? You'll fight us, human? You're starving, weak, you can't even buy food." The men lunged forward, but Daniel moved fast. His punch landed square on the first man's jaw. The crack echoed in the alley. The drunk stumbled back, clutching his face. The others rushed him. Daniel dodged. Blocked, struck back. The fight was rough, uneven, but Daniel's fury gave him strength. He knocked one down, then another, until the group finally backed away. Cursing, "You'll regret this, human." The leader spat, blood dripping from his lip. "She will kill you in the end, just like she kills everyone." They staggered away into the night, their voices fading. Daniel stood there, breathing hard. His knuckles ached, his stomach twisted. But he stayed firm. He looked at the girl, who stared at him with wide, trembling eyes. "You fought them." "For me," she whispered, disbelief in her voice. Daniel lowered himself back down, wiping the blood from his hand. "I'll fight anyone who tries to hurt you." The girl's eyes filled with tears again. But this time she didn't hide them. She let them fall one by one, onto her thin cloak in the silence that followed. The market outside roared with life. But in that small, broken stall, something new was born, trust fragile but growing. Yet Daniel couldn't shake the unease in his chest. The whispers were spreading faster now. Not only in the market, but across the city soon. Everyone would know about the human who chose to save the plague child. And when the city itself decided to act, Daniel feared fists and knives would not be the only danger. The city grew quieter at night, but the silence was never safe. Guards patrolled the alleys, their boots striking the ground with heavy rhythm. Torches burned on every corner, throwing long shadows that moved like predators. Daniel sat awake in the ruined stall, his eyes scanning the darkness. The alien girl slept beside him, curled under his thin jacket. Her cough was softer now, but each sound still pulled at his chest. Daniel's mind raced. The fight with the drunk men had drawn too much attention. Tomorrow more people would come, not just drunks. He had seen how the guards looked at the girl, how their leader's eyes had burned with something beyond duty. Fear, maybe even hatred. The night wind was sharp, carrying the smell of smoke and oil from the upper towers. Daniel leaned back against the wall, exhaustion tugging at him. His body ached from hunger. his fists sore from the fight, but he forced himself to stay awake. He could not let his guard down, not here, not now. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the alley. Not the stagger of drunks this time, steady, heavy, trained. Daniel tensed. He shook the girl gently. "Wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. Confusion at first, then fear as the sound grew closer. She clutched his jacket tighter. "The guards?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. "We need to move." Before they could stand, a voice rang out, cold and sharp. "Human, step away from her. This is your last warning." 3 guards appeared at the mouth of the alley, torches in hand. Their armor glinted red in the firelight, weapons drawn. The leader from the market stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the girl. "She does not belong here," he growled. "She is marked. She brings death. Give her up." "And you may live." Daniel rose, placing himself between the guards and the girl. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "She's just a child. She's sick." "Not cursed," the guard sneered. "You don't know what she carries. Human. Do you want her blood on your hands? When others die because of her, it will be your fault." Behind him, the other guards shifted, ready to strike. Daniel's fists clenched. He knew he couldn't fight them all. Not with their armor and weapons. His mind raced. He glanced around the alley. Broken crates, shadows. The faint outline of another path leading deeper into the market's back streets. He whispered quickly to the girl. "When I move, run that way. Don't stop." "Don't look back." Her eyes widened. "But, no but," Daniel cut her off. His voice sharp but gentle. "Run!" The guards stepped closer, torches throwing heat against Daniel's face. The leader lifted his weapon. "Enough, human. Step aside." Daniel moved first. He kicked a crate hard, sending it crashing into the torches. Sparks flew. The alley filled with sudden smoke and confusion. In the same breath, he grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward the dark passage. "Run," he shouted. They sprinted into the shadows, the girl stumbling but keeping pace. Behind them, the guards roared, "Stop them!" Boots pounded the ground, the torchlight flared, chasing them through the twisting alleys. Daniel's lungs burned, his stomach empty, his body weak. But he didn't slow down. He pulled the girl with every step. Her cloak flapped behind her, her cough breaking the silence as they ran. They ducked between stalls, overturned barrels, and narrow gaps between buildings. Shouts echoed, "There! This way!" Daniel turned sharply, leading them into a maze of storage sheds. He pushed the girl inside one, slamming the wooden door shut behind them. They crouched in the dark, breathing hard. The sound of boots thundered past outside. The guards' voices faded, though not far enough. The girl's chest heaved, her face pale in the dim moonlight that slipped through the cracks. "Why are they chasing me like this?" she whispered, tears in her voice. "Why do they want me gone so badly?" Daniel looked at her, sweat dripping down his brow. His voice was low but firm. "Because they're afraid? Afraid of something you don't even understand yet." Her lips trembled. "I don't want anyone hurt because of me. You should leave me." Daniel shook his head fiercely. "No, I won't. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." For a long moment, she just stared at him, her eyes shining in the faint light. Then she whispered, almost like a vow, "I won't forget this, human, not ever." Outside, the guards shouted orders, still searching. The night carried their anger through the alleys, but Daniel and the girl stayed hidden, pressed close in the shadows. When silence finally returned, Daniel leaned back against the wall. His chest rose and fell heavily. His body screamed for rest, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew this was only the beginning. The city would not forgive what he had done tonight. As the girl's breathing steadied beside him, Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. His decision was already made. He would not abandon her, even if the whole city turned against him. But deep inside, a question burned like fire. What secret in her blood made even soldiers tremble? The shed was dark and cold, but it was the only safe place left. Daniel sat against the wooden wall, his body sore. His fists still ached from the fight, and his stomach groaned with hunger. The alien girl sat close beside him. Her breath heavy, her cough had returned. Though weaker than before, Daniel handed her the last drops of medicine from the vial. She swallowed slowly, her thin hands shaking. For a moment there was silence, only the sound of their tired breathing. Finally Daniel spoke, his voice low. "You have to tell me the truth. Why are they so afraid of you? Why do they call you cursed?" The girl lowered her head, pulling her cloak tighter. Her silence stretched. But Daniel waited, his eyes steady on her. Patient but firm. After a long pause, her whisper filled the shed. "It's my blood," Daniel frowned. "Your blood?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "When I was younger, I cut my hand while helping in the fields. My mother tried to bandage me, but when her skin touched my blood, her sickness vanished. She had been coughing for months, almost ready to die. But after touching my blood, she was healed. Completely healed." Daniel's eyes widened. He leaned closer, trying to see her face in the dim light. "Healed? You mean your blood cures sickness?" Tears gathered in her eyes. "At first, my family thought it was a blessing, but then others found out. They came to us begging for help. Some cut me on purpose, forcing me to bleed so they could use it. Every time I grew weaker, my body could not handle it. And when the priests learned of it, they called me cursed. They said no child should carry such power. They said it would bring disaster." Her voice cracked as she went on. "My father tried to protect me, but the guards came. They said I was dangerous. They said people would kill for my blood. They dragged me away. I escaped somehow. But since then, everyone fears me. They think I carry death. Not life." Daniel sat in stunned silence. The pieces came together. The fear in the market. The whispers. The guards' eyes filled with dread. They were not afraid of her sickness. They were afraid of her power, he whispered. "Your blood. It could save thousands. Maybe more," she shook her head. "It only brings pain. People see me as nothing but a tool. They don't see me as a person. Just a cure to use until I die." Daniel's hands curled into fists. His jaw tightened. He had seen cruelty before. In wars and slavery and hungry worlds where the strong crushed the weak. But this was different. This was a child forced to carry something too heavy, and the world had punished her for it. He looked at her, his voice steady. "You're not cursed. You're not dangerous. You're special. And no one will use you while I'm here." Her eyes widened at his words. For a moment, hope flickered across her tired face, fragile but real. Suddenly, noise erupted outside the shed. Heavy boots, the clatter of weapons. Daniel froze. The girl's body went stiff. Her whisper trembled. "The guards." Daniel pressed a finger to his lips. Signaling silence, he moved quietly to the wall. Peering through a crack outside, torches burned, casting light across the alley. 5 guards stood in formation, their leader barking orders. "Search every corner," he shouted. "The human and the cursed girl cannot be allowed to escape." The soldiers spread out, their torches glowing brighter. Daniel pulled back, his chest tight. They didn't have much time. He turned to the girl, whispering quickly, "We can't stay here. They'll find us." Her eyes filled with fear. "Where can we go?" "There's nowhere safe." Daniel clenched his jaw. His mind raced. He had one idea, dangerous but possible. "The lower tunnels," he said. "Old drains under the city. I saw an entrance near the market walls. If we can reach it. We can hide until morning." The girl's lips trembled. "Those tunnels are full of rats and thieves." Daniel gave a faint smile. "Better rats than guards." He pulled her hand gently and they slipped out the back of the shed. Moving through the shadows, the guards' voices echoed nearby. But the darkness kept them hidden. Every step was a risk. Every corner could bring death. As they ran, Daniel glanced at the girl. Her face pale, her steps shaky. But her eyes stronger than before. She carried fear, yes, but also something more. Resolve. For the first time since he had met her, Daniel understood. She wasn't just a sick child. She was a secret too powerful for this city to control. And he had made himself part of it. When they reached the edge of the market, Daniel spotted the old drain cover. Rusted and half-buried, he pushed it aside with effort, the metal screeching. He motioned to the girl. "Go." She hesitated, staring into the dark hole. But then she nodded and climbed down. Daniel followed, pulling the cover back over them. In the damp silence of the tunnels, the girl whispered, "Why do you risk so much for me? You could walk away, save yourself." Daniel looked at her in the dim glow of the moonlight filtering through cracks, his voice steady. "Because no one deserves to be hunted for being different. Because your life matters more than they want you to believe." Her eyes shone, reflecting the faint light, and for the first time, Daniel saw not weakness in her, but the beginning of strength. Above them, the city roared with the hunt. Guards shouted, torches burned. The whole city wanted her gone, but in the dark tunnels, a human and a sick alien girl held on to something the city could not kill. Hope. And Daniel knew this was only the beginning, because secrets written in blood could not stay hidden forever. The tunnels beneath the city were dark. damp and cold. The air smelled of rust and rot. Water dripped from above. Echoing through the narrow stone paths, Daniel moved carefully, holding the alien girl's hand tightly. She followed close, her feet dragging. "Just a little farther," he whispered. The girl said nothing, but her grip on his hand tightened. Her body was weak, but her eyes were steady now, stronger than before. For hours they moved through the winding passages, climbing over broken pipes and ducking under hanging wires. Rats scurried along the walls, but neither of them paid attention. Finally, they reached a large chamber, an old water storage room long forgotten. In the center was a dry pool, its bottom cracked with time. "We'll rest here," Daniel said. Sitting down with a sigh, he pulled the girl close, letting her rest her head on his shoulder. But peace didn't last. Boom. A distant sound, followed by a strange orange glow from one of the tunnel entrances. Daniel stood, his heart racing. He moved closer to the tunnel wall. Peeking down the corridor, flames fire was spreading through the lower tunnels. Guards were burning the paths, flushing them out like rats. "They're burning us out," Daniel whispered. He looked back at the girl. "We have to go now," but she didn't move. Her face was pale, her body frozen in fear. "I can't," she said softly. "I'm too tired. I can't run anymore." Daniel dropped to his knees in front of her. His voice was firm but kind. "You've already made it this far. Don't stop now. We don't run because we're afraid. We run because we still have something worth living for." The firelight flickered closer, smoke creeping into the chamber. The heat began to rise suddenly from the shadows. Voices echoed. "There, down that path." "Guards." Daniel grabbed the girl's hand. "Come on." She pushed herself up with effort. Her legs shook, but she stood together. They ran into another tunnel, the fire behind them. Guards closing in from every side. The stone walls grew narrower. The heat unbearable, but Daniel didn't stop. He guided her through twists and turns until they reached a rusted ladder leading upward. "Climb," he said. The girl hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." She nodded and began to climb slowly. Daniel stood below her, looking back as torchlight approached. Just as she reached the top and pushed the grate open, a guard's voice shouted, "Stop!" Daniel turned, the guard's weapon pointed straight at him. "Don't take another step," the guard barked. Daniel raised his hands slowly. "She's just a child. She's a danger to the city," the guard growled. "Her blood could destroy balance. Make people rebel, heal those we control. She is a threat to order." Daniel's jaw clenched. "She's not a threat, she's hope." The guard stepped closer. "Step away, human, or die with her." The girl looked down from the grate, eyes wide with fear. "Daniel, please." Daniel took one deep breath, then smiled faintly. "You can burn the tunnels," he said to the guard. "You can hunt her in the dark, you can spread fear. But you can't stop what's already begun." Then, he kicked the side pipe loose and steam exploded from the wall. Blinding the guards for a second, Daniel jumped up the ladder, grabbing the girl's arm just as fire reached the bottom. Together they pulled themselves out into the open street, coughing and gasping for air. Behind them, the grate glowed red with heat, smoke pouring upward. Daniel pulled her into a shadowed alley, both of them collapsing on the cold stone. He coughed hard, his body shaking. The girl turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "You could have left me," she whispered. "They would have let you live if you just walked away." Daniel turned to her, his face covered in sweat and ash. "I had a choice," he said. "Food or medicine, safety or kindness, and now fire or freedom." She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him, trembling. "Thank you," he held her gently, watching as the city lights flickered in the distance, but he knew this wasn't over. They had escaped the fire, but not the truth. Soon the city would learn she had survived. The secret in her blood would spread and others would come. Some to help, many to harm. Daniel had made his choice, and there was no turning back now. And the girl? The girl was no longer just sick, she was something far more dangerous. She was hope, and hope was the one thing the city feared most. The night was almost gone, and the sky above the city turned pale blue. A soft breeze moved through the quiet streets, lifting dust and ash from the alleyways. Daniel sat against the wall of a broken building, holding the alien girl close. Her eyes were closed, but she was still breathing, weak but alive. Smoke still drifted from the tunnels behind them, where the guards had tried to burn them out. Somewhere down below others still searched, but up here, in the forgotten parts of the city, it was quiet for now. Daniel wiped sweat from his face. His clothes were torn, his body covered in bruises. His stomach ached with hunger, but he was still standing, and she was still alive. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the light. Is it morning? Daniel smiled faintly. Almost. She looked around. Then up at the sky, her voice was small. I haven't seen the sun in weeks. Then you'll see it today, Daniel said. No more hiding. She sat up slowly, wincing at the pain in her ribs. They'll keep hunting us, she whispered. They won't stop until I'm gone. Daniel looked out at the empty street. Maybe, he said, but I don't think we're the only ones anymore. What do you mean? She asked. He pointed. And she followed his gaze across the street. A woman stood watching them. Her clothes were simple, a market worker. Her eyes were filled with fear, but not of the girl. It was a different kind of fear, like someone standing at the edge of a choice. Daniel nodded politely but didn't speak. The woman didn't run, didn't shout for the guards. Instead, she slowly stepped forward. Pulling a cloth from her pocket, she offered it toward the girl. For your cuts, the woman said softly. I saw what happened last night. I saw you fight the fire. The girl hesitated, then reached out with shaking hands and took the cloth. Another person stepped out from a side door, an old man with a limp. He didn't say anything, just gave Daniel a nod. Then a young alien boy appeared near the corner. Peeking around, curious, one by one, people appeared. Quiet, uncertain, but watching. Not all were kind, but not all were cruel either. The story is spreading, Daniel whispered. They know you're still alive. They know someone protected you. They're wondering why. The girl looked frightened. They'll turn against us, or they'll finally start thinking, Daniel replied. You didn't bring death, you survived it. He helped her stand. Her legs trembled, but she stood tall. Slowly, they walked out into the open street, faces turning toward them. Daniel raised his voice, calm but strong. She's not cursed. She's not a monster. She is a healer, and the city feared her because of that. Silence fell over the people. Then someone whispered, I heard her blood healed a dying child. Another added, she saved him during the fire. A third voice, shaking, asked, is it true? Can her blood heal? The girl looked at Daniel, unsure. He nodded gently. She stepped forward, pulled back her sleeve, and showed her wrist. A thin scar was still visible. She spoke. Yes. It's true, but every time I give blood it hurts. It takes my strength. I'm not a miracle. I am just me. A long pause filled the air. Then a woman stepped forward from the crowd, carrying a small child in her arms. The child's face was pale, sick, eyes half closed. The mother looked at the girl with trembling lips. Please, if there's even a small chance. The girl turned to Daniel. What should I do? Daniel said nothing. He only looked at her with quiet pride. Letting her decide, the girl walked to the mother, gently touched the child's arm, and pricked her own finger with a sharp stone. One small drop of blood fell on the child's skin. Nothing happened at first, but then the child stirred, opened his eyes, and gave a small cough. Not sick, but clear, healthy, the crowd gasped. Some stepped back in shock, others stepped forward in awe. The girl swayed, her body weak, but Daniel caught her, holding her steady. She's not a tool, he said loudly. She is a person, and she deserves protection, not fear. The guards did arrive later, weapons ready, faces hard, but they stopped when they saw the crowd standing between them and the girl. A man stepped forward, a merchant who once refused Daniel food. He stood with arms crossed. She saved my nephew. If you try to harm her now, you'll go through all of us. The guards looked at each other. Uncertain for the first time, fear was in their eyes. Not of the girl, but of the people that morning as the sun finally rose. Daniel stood beside the alien girl as golden light touched her face. She looked up at him, eyes full of wonder. Is this what freedom feels like? Daniel smiled. It's just the beginning. And somewhere in the city, others began whispering too, not of curses or sickness, but of the girl who healed with her blood, and the human who chose to save her when no one else would. And just like that, hope returned to a city that had forgotten how to care.